October 3rd, 2025, NASA shut down. 15,000 employees sent home. The same day, an interstellar object passed within 30 million kilometers of Mars. 7 spacecraft were watching, cameras designed to photograph features smaller than a kitchen table. And what did we get? A fuzzy white dot that looks like someone sneezed on a lens. Within hours, amateur astronomers with backyard telescopes were posting sharper images of comets millions of miles farther away. The European Space Agency released their photos. NASA went silent. China's orbiter, silent. UAE's Hope probe, silent. 4 separate space agencies, 4 sovereign governments, all watching the same object. None willing to show us what they actually saw. By the time you finish listening to this, 3 I/Atlas will be behind the sun, hidden from every telescope on Earth, during what should be its most active moment. If Harvard physicist Avi Loeb is right, what happens next could rewrite everything we thought we knew about visitors from other star systems. October 7th, 2025. The European Space Agency finally released their images. Months of hype, promises of unprecedented clarity, the closest view ever of an interstellar visitor. And there it was, a blob, a smudge, a fuzzy white dot moving slowly across a star field. No detail, no structure, nothing that would help us understand whether we're looking at ice and rock or something else entirely. The backlash was immediate. A user called Astronomy Vibes posted a side-by-side comparison. On the left, a crisp, detailed image of Comet Lemon captured by an amateur with a simple camera. On the right, ESA's image of 3 I/Atlas. The caption read, "Billions in funding, and this is the best photo they've got?" The post went viral, 40,000 reposts in 24 hours. Here's what makes people angry. The Cassis camera aboard ESA's ExoMars orbiter has an angular resolution of 11.36 microradians per pixel. At 30 million kilometers, that translates to 340 kilometers per pixel. The estimated nucleus of 3 I/Atlas is somewhere between 5 and 46 kilometers across. That means the entire solid core would occupy, at best, a fraction of a single pixel. But here's the thing. ESA knew this going in. They knew their cameras were designed for photographing Mars from orbit, not faint objects tens of millions of kilometers away. Nick Thomas, the principal investigator, admitted as much. This was a very challenging observation. The comet is around 10,000 to 100,000 times fainter than our usual target. So why release images you know are inadequate? Why build expectations for months only to deliver nothing? The timing feels deliberate. Give people something to look at while the real data stays locked away. Because there are better images, much better images. And someone decided we shouldn't see them. While ESA released fuzzy dots, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was capturing something entirely different. The HiRISE camera, high-resolution imaging science experiment, the most powerful camera ever sent to another planet. From Mars orbit, it can distinguish objects the size of a kitchen table on the Martian surface. When 3 I/Atlas made its closest approach on October 3rd, HiRISE had a resolution of approximately 30 kilometers per pixel at the object's distance. That's more than 10 times better than what ESA achieved. If there's structure, if there's anything unusual, anything that doesn't fit the natural comet story, HiRISE saw it. Avi Loeb wrote in his blog on October 7th. The brightest pixel in the HiRISE image will provide the best constraint yet on the area of 3 I/Atlas. We are all hoping the HiRISE team will release their images as soon as possible. That was October 7th. Still nothing. The excuse? Government shutdown. 15,000 NASA employees furloughed. Over 80% of the agency sent home. Website not updating. Public communications ceased. Bureaucratic paralysis at the worst possible moment. But wait. ESA released their images. They're a European agency, completely unaffected by American politics. China's Tianwen-1 orbiter was watching too. Also silent. The UAE's Hope orbiter had a clear shot. Nothing. Multiple space agencies, multiple governments, separate bureaucracies, different priorities. All simultaneously unable or unwilling to release their best data on the most significant interstellar object in years. Think about that pattern. October 3rd. Same day as the Mars flyby. A Portuguese amateur astronomer using the name Dobsonian Power uploaded an image that went viral within hours. He used a solar telescope from his backyard, wrong equipment for deep space objects, but with aggressive digital enhancement, he captured something: angular structures, dark geometric shapes, protrusions that don't match the typical fuzzy glow of a comet's coma. His caption, "What on earth is it?" Within 6 hours, the image was everywhere: astronomy forums, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. The reaction split immediately into two camps. One group saw clear evidence of artificial structures, proof that 3I Atlas isn't what mainstream science claims. The other group dismissed it as pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist, processing artifacts from inappropriate equipment. The debunkers had solid arguments. Solar telescopes use specialized filters for the sun's brightness, not faint deep space objects. Add aggressive digital enhancement, and you're asking an algorithm to invent details that aren't there. Fair point. But here's what makes it complicated. Dobsonian Power isn't some conspiracy theorist with a cheap telescope. He's been sharing legitimate astrophotography for over a decade. His YouTube channel documents his equipment, his methods, his processing workflows. When pressed about the anomalous structures, he didn't double down with wild claims. He acknowledged uncertainty, promised to try again in November when the object becomes visible from Earth. Measured, scientific, appropriately cautious, which makes the reaction to his image more telling. Within 24 hours, multiple websites published articles specifically debunking his capture. Amateur captures strange image. Here's why it's not what it seems. The timing felt coordinated. The tone felt defensive, as if someone needed to establish the narrative quickly before the image gained too much traction. Then the enhancement wars began. Users downloaded the ESA images and ran them through their own processing. Some used standard astronomical techniques, others employed AI upscaling tools. A few went full chaos with machine learning models trained to reconstruct details from limited data. Results varied wildly. Some showed slightly sharper versions of the same fuzzy dot. Others revealed what appeared to be geometric patterns, edges, structures too regular to be natural. But once you start aggressively processing an image, especially with AI, you're no longer looking at what's actually there. You're looking at what an algorithm thinks should be there based on training data. If you train AI on thousands of spacecraft images, then ask it to enhance a blurry dot, it might invent spacecraft-like details. That's what it learned to recognize. Scientific dead end wrapped in the illusion of clarity. The proliferation of enhanced images had an unintended effect. It muddied the water so thoroughly that distinguishing legitimate observations from fabrications became impossible. Within 48 hours, dozens of supposedly enhanced versions circulated online. Some showed metallic surfaces, others depicted solar panels, a few included running lights and thrusters. Most were obviously fake. Digital art by people with too much Photoshop skill. But mixed in with the noise were a handful that felt different, more subtle, less sensational, just enough unusual regularity to make you wonder. October 4th, an anonymous user on 4chan's paranormal board posted what they claimed was insider information. The post was titled simply, ESA Data Leak. It began, "I am a doctoral researcher working with the European Space Agency with continuous access to the combined observational data of 3I Atlas. Internet leaks are common, most are creative fiction or trolling. But this one felt different. The level of technical detail was unsettling. The poster didn't make wild claims about alien invasions. Instead, they laid out specific observational anomalies that, if true, would fundamentally challenge our understanding of what 3I Atlas is. First anomaly, chemical impossibility. According to the post, spectroscopic analysis shows 3I Atlas releasing approximately 100 kilograms of nickel gas per second, but almost no iron emission. In natural cosmic chemistry, nickel and iron are inseparable. They form together in supernova explosions. They travel together through space. Finding abundant nickel with virtually no iron is like finding smoke without fire. Second anomaly, thermal contradiction. The object releases massive amounts of gas and dust, the signature of a comet being heated by the sun. But infrared observations show it remains cold, far colder than it should be given its outgassing rate. The poster compared it to watching someone sweat profusely in a freezer. The physics don't match. Third anomaly, trajectory precision. The post referenced Loeb's public statements about the orbit, inclination of just 4.89 degrees relative to Earth's ecliptic plane. But the poster added something Loeb didn't emphasize. The trajectory isn't just unusual, it's a perfect straight shot from the direction of the galactic core. No wobble, no deviation, no signs of gravitational perturbation from nearby stars during billions of years traveling through space. As if it was aimed. Then came the dark part. The poster claimed the object fits the profile of what they called a post-biological entity. Not a natural comet, not a conventional spacecraft, something in between. They described it as having a 3-phase particle engine with estimated power output of 75 megawatts, continuously transmitting an active signal, probing our solar system. The post concluded with theoretical framework. The poster suggested 3I Atlas might be a macroscopic quantum object, specifically a cue-ball, an exotic construct from particle physics, a type of non-topological solitone that could exist at scales far larger than subatomic particles. If stable, a cue-ball could have impossible properties, incredibly dense while appearing diffuse, could absorb and redistribute energy instantaneously, could explain the nickel without iron problem if its internal quantum state preferentially produces certain isotopes. Within 18 hours, the post was screenshot and shared everywhere. Reddit thread accumulated over 2,000 comments before moderators locked it. Locking the thread didn't stop the conversation. It just fragmented into dozens of parallel discussions, pulling the original post in different directions. October 4th. NASA's Perseverance rover sitting in Jezero crater on Mars captured something in the night sky. The right navigation camera showed an elongated streak of light, roughly 4 times longer than it was wide. At first glance, typical long exposure of a moving object. Standard stuff, except the math didn't work. People started calculating the apparent size based on Perseverance's camera specs and distance to 3I Atlas. They arrived at a disturbing number, 50,000 kilometers long. That's not a comet nucleus. That's not even a comet with a tail. That's something else. For comparison, Earth's diameter is less than 13,000 kilometers. If this streak represented actual physical size, we were looking at an object nearly 4 times wider than our planet. Social media exploded. Was 3I Atlas actually a massive cylindrical craft? Had it been hiding its true size behind gas and dust? The timing felt significant. This image emerged one day after the Mars flyby, right when all professional agencies went quiet. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, member of Congress known for interest in unexplained phenomena, reached out to Avi Loeb for analysis. Think about that. A sitting U.S. representative felt compelled to contact a Harvard physicist about a Mars photograph, not normal protocol. Loeb's response was thorough. He calculated that Perseverance's NavCam has angular resolution of 0.33 milliradians per pixel. At 38 million kilometers, that's about 12,500 kilometers per pixel. The streak spans roughly 4 pixels. That's your 50,000 kilometers. But Loeb argued this was composite imaging artifact. The streak wasn't showing size, it was showing the path the object traced across Martian sky during long integration time, likely around 10 minutes of stacked exposures. His reasoning was solid. Mars orbits at 24 kilometers per second. 3I Atlas was traveling at 67 kilometers per second relative to the Sun in opposite direction. Relative velocity over 90 kilometers per second. Over 10 minutes, that's 54,000 kilometers of travel, perfectly matching the observed streak length. The shape wasn't the object, it was motion smeared across time. Case closed, right? cylinder theory debunked by basic physics. Except Loeb included one sentence that conspiracy theorists latched onto. If the nav-cam images represent single snapshots with exposure time below 3.28 seconds, then the brightness and angular length imply it is not the 3-eye atlas. The source might be much closer to the camera. Wait, if these are single frames, then what Perseverance photographed wasn't 3-eye atlas at all. Something else, something closer to Mars. That qualifier opened a door that no clarification could close. NASA hasn't confirmed whether the image is composite or single frame. No metadata released, no exposure time, no number of stacked images. Government shutdown excuse applies here too, no staff to process requests. August 15, 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope detected a 72-second burst of radio energy so unusual that astronomer Jerry Amon circled it on the printout and wrote one word in red pen. Wow, for nearly 5 decades, that signal has remained unexplained. It came from the direction of Sagittarius. Narrowband, focused at one specific frequency, never repeated. Hundreds of follow-up observations, thousands of hours listening to the same region of sky, nothing. Just that one burst 48 years ago. Then eternal silence, until Avi Loeb ran the numbers on 3-eye atlas. He calculated where the object was on August 12, 1977, 3 days before the WOW signal. The answer, approximately 600 astronomical units from Earth. More importantly, he calculated what direction 3-eye atlas was coming from at that time. Right ascension, 19 hours 40 minutes, declination 19 degrees. The WOW signal came from right ascension 19 hours 25 minutes. Declination negative 27 degrees. Separated by approximately 9 degrees. In the vastness of space, with random objects coming from literally any direction, the probability of this alignment is about 0.6%. Not impossible. Deeply suspicious. Loeb didn't stop there. He asked, if 3-eye atlas sent the WOW signal from 600 astronomical units away, how powerful would the transmitter need to be? The math is straightforward. The detected intensity was between 54 and 212 Janskis across a 10 kilohertz bandwidth. At 600 AU, that corresponds to transmitter output between half a gigawatt and 2 gigawatts. Nuclear power plant levels of energy, focused into a narrow radio beam. Not impossible for an advanced civilization. Actually quite reasonable if you're trying to send a detectable signal across interstellar distances without wasting energy on omnidirectional broadcasting. Another detail makes the connection harder to dismiss. The WOW signal was observed at frequency of 1420.456 megahertz. Blue shifted by approximately 10 kilometers per second toward Earth relative to the hydrogen line. Blue shift indicates the source was moving toward us. 3-eye atlas is currently approaching the Sun at about 60 kilometers per second. Loeb suggests that if this object has maneuvering capability, it could have been moving slower in 1977, then accelerated after detecting habitable zone planets. A reconnaissance pulse. Radar scan checking for signs of technological civilization before committing to closer approach. Here's what makes this frustrating. It would be trivially easy to check. Point a radio telescope at 3-eye atlas, listen at hydrogen line frequency. If it's transmitting, we'll know within hours. Simple test, definitive answer. And yet, as Loeb noted, not a single radio telescope has reported data on 3-eye atlas. Very Large Array hasn't looked. Arecibo is destroyed. Greenbank hasn't published observations. Even SETI, literally dedicated to finding extraterrestrial signals, hasn't announced monitoring efforts. The silence from radio astronomy is deafening. Imagine throwing a dart at a globe from across a room while blindfolded. Now imagine that dart lands within a few degrees of the equator. That's the statistical improbability of how 3-eye atlas entered our solar system. Objects from interstellar space can arrive from any direction. randomly distributed across the celestial sphere, all possible angles. 3I Atlas arrived with orbital inclination of just 4.89 degrees relative to Earth's ecliptic plane, less than 5 degrees. That puts it in less than 1% of possible arrival angles. Avi Loeb has been hammering this point in every interview, every blog post, every statement since July. The trajectory is anomalous, not just unusual, statistically profoundly unlikely for a random interstellar object. To understand why, think about how objects move through the galaxy. Stars orbit the galactic center with some average velocity, but they also have random motions, up, down, side to side. That randomness means objects ejected from other star systems should arrive from all directions with equal probability. No preferred direction. No cosmic highway funneling visitors into our ecliptic plane. And before someone suggests objects from the Milky Way disk naturally arrive at shallow angles, Loeb addressed that too. The galactic disk is tilted about 60 degrees relative to our ecliptic, 60 degrees, more than 10 times larger than 3I Atlas inclination. If this object came from a typical star system and was ejected randomly, we'd expect it to arrive at a steep angle. Not shallow. The alignment is backwards from what galactic geometry predicts. Compare 3I Atlas to other interstellar objects. Oumuamua, discovered 2017, arrived with inclination of 123 degrees. Wildly tilted, coming from above the solar system plane. 2I Borisov, spotted 2019, had inclination of 44 degrees, still steep. Consistent with random arrival, both behaved exactly as expected. 3I Atlas is the outlier, the anomaly, the one that doesn't fit. Loeb calculated probability of this alignment assuming random directions, less than 1% chance. Some colleagues pushed back. Maybe true probability is closer to 5 or 10% when accounting for selection effects and observational biases. Fine. Even at 10%, you're looking at something that should only happen once in every 10 interstellar objects we detect. We've only detected 3, the odds of the third one being the rare exception rather than the rule. Not in favor of coincidence. Now layer that on top of everything else. Wow signal alignment, also less than 1%. Chemical anomalies, thermal contradictions, missing high-resolution images. Government shutdown. At exact moment we need NASA most. Any single anomaly could be explained away. Coincidence. Measurement error. Bureaucratic incompetence. But when you stack anomalies, when you multiply small probabilities together, compound improbability becomes harder to dismiss. There's a principle called the prosecutor's fallacy, treating multiple independent low probability events as related when they're just random coincidences clustered together. Flip a coin enough times, eventually you'll get 10 heads in a row. Doesn't mean the coin is rigged. Skeptics argue that's what we're seeing. Natural comet with several unusual but explainable properties that coincidentally appeared together. The counterargument is equally valid. If something walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, and has duck DNA, at some point you consider it might be a duck. Or in this case, arrives on unlikely trajectory, shows chemistry that doesn't match natural processes, correlates with 48-year-old radio signal, prompts multiple governments to withhold imaging data. Maybe it's worth seriously considering we're not looking at random ice and rock. October 29th and 30th. Mark those dates. In less than 72 hours from now, 3I Atlas will reach perihelion. Closest approach to Sun, distance approximately 202 million kilometers, just inside Mars' orbit. For natural comet, this is moment of truth. Intense solar radiation should cause dramatic outgassing, possibly fragmentation. We've seen it before. Comets get close, heat becomes too much. They break apart. Spectacular when it happens. If 3I Atlas is ordinary ice and rock from another star system, that's exactly what should occur. But here's the problem. We won't see it. 3I Atlas will be on opposite side of Sun from Earth during perihelion passage. Every ground-based telescope useless. Object lost in solar glare. hidden from observation during what should be its most active, most revealing moment. Some call it unfortunate timing, others see suspiciously convenient. If you wanted to do something without being watched, couldn't pick better window. Avi Loeb has been explicit about what happens next. In his October 3rd blog post, published day of Mars flyby, he laid out 2 scenarios. If 3I Atlas's natural comet, it may erupt in flare of outgassing or break into icy fragments soon. Sunlight will deposit gigawatts of power onto surface. Energy has to go somewhere. For ice and rock goes into vaporization, sublimation, possibly structural failure. Then Loeb added alternative. If it is technological, it may maneuver to benefit from Sun's gravitational assist or release probes that could intercept Earth or other planets owing to its retrograde orbit. Read that again. Release probes that could intercept Earth. Not talking about passive observation, talking about active deployment. Retrograde orbit is key. 3I Atlas moving opposite to direction planets orbit Sun. That means any probe it releases doesn't have to fight planetary motion to reach us. Simply drops into intercept trajectory. Lets orbital mechanics do the work. From behind Sun, hidden from view, would be trivial to launch something toward Earth that wouldn't be detected until already close. Loeb went further. When you look at Sun in coming weeks, keep in mind 3I Atlas is passing behind it. If 3I Atlas maneuvers toward Earth when it reappears on other side of Sun, financial markets may crash. Financial markets may crash, not metaphor, not hyperbole. He's suggesting if this object demonstrates technological capability, if it alters course toward Earth after perihelion, economic and social consequences would be immediate and severe. Stock markets respond to uncertainty. Uncertainty of potentially hostile interstellar object actively changing trajectory toward our planet, existential level uncertainty. Timing of everything compounds tension. Government shutdown means NASA offline during critical observation window. Best images from Mars flyby still unreleased. Amateur astronomers can't observe for next month because it's behind Sun. Radio telescopes haven't checked for transmissions. Flying blind into most important moment of entire encounter. Whether through incompetence or design, we've created situation where we won't know what 3I Atlas does at perihelion until it's already done it. There is one group watching. Galileo Project, led by Loeb, operates 3 observatories: Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Nevada, equipped with high-resolution cameras, infrared sensors, radio receivers designed to detect anomalous aerial phenomena. During late October, early November, all 3 observatories in maximum operational mode, monitoring skies for anything unusual. If 3I Atlas releases probes, if there's enhanced UAP activity correlated with perihelion passage, Galileo instruments might catch it. Might being operative word. 3 observatories covering small fraction of Earth's sky. If something comes and avoids those specific zones, we'll miss it entirely. Early November, that's when 3I Atlas emerges from behind Sun, becomes visible again from Earth. Ground-based telescopes can track once more. We'll see whether it survived perihelion intact or broke apart under solar stress. We'll measure trajectory to determine if course corrections occurred. And we'll finally know whether past 4 months of speculation, conspiracy theories, unanswered questions were justified, or just collective hysteria over completely natural interstellar visitor. If 3I Atlas emerges on same trajectory it entered with, if it shows clear signs of fragmentation or increased outgassing consistent with solar heating, if it behaves exactly like 2I Borisov did during solar approach in 2019, then mystery essentially solved. Natural comet, unusual chemistry, sure. Statistically unlikely trajectory, granted, but ultimately just icy remnant from another star system passing through ours. Wow signal connection becomes coincidence. 4chan leak becomes creative fiction. Missing NASA images become bureaucratic delays during government shutdown. Everything slots back into comfortable framework where interstellar objects are interesting but not alarming. But if it doesn't, if 3I Atlas emerges with altered trajectory, if it demonstrates even subtle course corrections that can't be explained by outgassing thrust, if radio telescopes finally point at it and detect structured transmissions, if NASA images eventually surface and show geometric structures that shouldn't exist on natural object, then we're in completely uncharted territory, not just scientifically, socially, politically, economically. Every assumption about our place in cosmos gets challenged. Every government's response to extraterrestrial contact gets tested in real time. A.V. Loeb created something he calls the Loeb scale, ranking system for how likely object is to be artificial origin and how much potential threat it represents. Rank 1 means almost certainly natural with interesting but explainable anomalies. Rank 10 means definitely artificial with demonstrated hostile intent and capability to reach Earth. He stated publicly he won't rank 3I Atlas lower than 2. Even in best-case scenario, anomalies too persistent, too numerous, too correlated. 2 means probably natural, but with enough unexplained features to warrant serious investigation. Means we can't definitively rule out artificial origin without more data. That's where we are. Suspended between probable natural object and possible technological artifact. Waiting for November, waiting for high-resolution images that may never come. Waiting for radio observations that haven't happened. Waiting for 3I Atlas to either continue on hyperbolic trajectory out of solar system, never to be seen again, or to do something that forces us to confront reality. We are not alone, and we are not ready. ESA announced their Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer spacecraft, JUICE, will observe 3I Atlas between November 2nd and 25th using various instruments. This happens just after perihelion, when objects should be in most active state. Data won't be available until February 2026. Communication delays and processing time. 7 months of waiting for images captured in November. 7 months of not knowing whether enhanced activity JUICE observes is normal cometary outgassing or something else. 7 months of wondering whether fuzzy.esa showed us in October was really best they could do, or whether they're carefully managing revelation they don't know how to deliver. October 1st, 2025. While everyone watched 3I Atlas, something else passed between Earth and our satellites. Asteroid 2025 TF, size of giraffe, came closer than International Space Station orbits. We had no idea it was coming. By time astronomers spotted it, already gone, slipped back into darkness like shadow that forgot to announce itself. Think about that. We can photograph distant galaxies forming billions of years ago. Yet rock close enough to practically scratch our atmosphere went completely unnoticed until already in rearview mirror. Measured somewhere between 1 and 3 meters wide, small enough that had it entered atmosphere, would have burned up as brilliant fireball, nothing threatening cities. But here's what keeps astronomers awake. If we cannot reliably detect something this close, traveling at speeds that cross US in less than a minute, what else might we be missing? ESA and NASA tracked thousands of near-Earth objects, carefully cataloging which posed greatest collision risk. To be classified as potentially hazardous, asteroid must measure at least 140 meters diameter. Follow orbit, bringing it within 7.5 million kilometers of Earth, roughly 20 times distance to Moon. 2025 TF falls far short of size threshold, partly explains why it evaded detection. Our telescopes prioritize finding big ones, civilization enders, objects that could create extinction event. But this tiny visitor reminds us space is not empty. It churns with debris, ancient fragments from solar system formation, pieces of shattered worlds that never quite became planets. Most stays far away, locked in stable orbits in asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, or drifting in distant Kuiper belt beyond Neptune. But gravitational interactions, subtle tugs of Jupiter's immense mass, or nudge from passing comet can shift orbits, sending rocks on new trajectories that sometimes intersect with ours. What makes 2025 TF particularly interesting, not just that it came close, but that it came close during a month when sky seemed unusually busy with visitors. While one traveler slipped past unannounced, another was making much more theatrical entrance. While asteroids surprised us, another visitor was lighting up October skies. Comet C2025A6, better known as Lemon after observatory that discovered it. Brightening, approaching Earth, astrophotographers around world capturing increasingly dazzling images as this ball of ancient ice and dust makes its way toward close approach. Unlike stealth asteroid, Lemon tracked carefully since discovery. Right now sits at edge of naked eye visibility. Over next weeks, if conditions right and skies dark enough, you might step outside and see it yourself. Faint smudge of light with ghostly tail stretching away from sun. Comets fundamentally different from asteroids. Asteroids are rocky or metallic, solid chunks formed in warmer inner solar system. Comets are icy bodies from cold outer reaches, sometimes called dirty snowballs, though that sells them short. Comet nucleus contains frozen water, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia mixed with dust and organic compounds, chemical building blocks of life. As comet approaches sun, solar radiation warms surface, ice sublimates, turns directly from solid to gas without becoming liquid. This creates coma, temporary atmosphere of gas and dust stretching for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Solar wind and radiation pressure push material away from nucleus, forming characteristic tail that always points away from sun, regardless which direction comet travels. Lemon, not only comet gracing our skies this month, another visitor, C2025R2 known as Swan, slides past Earth later in October at distance of 0.26 astronomical units. Close enough to put on show for those with binoculars or small telescopes. Both comets currently shine around magnitude 6, right at threshold of human vision under perfect conditions. But comets, notoriously unpredictable, can suddenly brighten if rotation exposes fresh ice to sunlight, or if outburst sends plume of material into space. Can also fragment, breaking apart under stress of solar heating or tidal forces, creating multiple nuclei that each develop own coma and tail. What draws people to watch comets beyond beauty is connection to deep time. Ice in these objects formed billions of years ago in outer solar system, preserved in cosmic freezer far from sun's warmth. When we see comet, we're seeing material that existed before Earth had oceans, before moon was fully formed, before life emerged in whatever warm tidal pool or deep sea vent first gave rise to self-replicating chemistry. Some scientists believe comets delivered significant amounts of water to early Earth, raining down in bombardment that helped fill our oceans. Others suggest organic molecules found in comets, including amino acids, building blocks of proteins, may have seeded our planet with raw materials needed for life to begin. This connection between ancient comets and origin of life brings us back to 3I Atlas. Because if comets can carry building blocks of life, if they can deliver water and organics to young planets, what else might they carry? Late August, early September 2025. Very Large Telescope in Chile trained its UVES spectrograph on 3I Atlas. What they detected stopped scientists cold. Nickel atoms in gas plume, lots of nickel, rising exponentially as object approached sun, increasing by power law of roughly 9. But here's the problem, they detected almost no iron. In nature, nickel and iron are born together in supernova explosions. They occur in roughly fixed ratios. Every natural comet ever observed shows nickel and iron in similar abundances. 2I Borisov, previous interstellar comet, had normal nickel to iron ratios. Every solar system comet has normal ratios. 3I Atlas producing nickel without iron. The only place we see that signature is in industrial production. Nickel alloys, materials deliberately refined and separated. Scientists who published this data were careful in wording, called it extremely puzzling. Noted temperature at objects' distance from sun far too low to vaporize refractory minerals containing these metals under normal conditions. They proposed some chemical pathways that might explain it. but you could feel uncertainty in prose. And it's not static. Nickel production increases with decreasing distance from Sun exponentially by power law of roughly 9. That means every time object gets 10% closer, nickel output increases by factor that climbs steeply. This is not random outgassing. This is process ramping up as solar energy increases, almost like something powering on. Now add the thermal contradiction from the 4chan leak. Object releasing massive amounts of gas and dust, signature of active comet being heated. But infrared observations show it remains cold, far colder than it should be given outgassing rate and proximity to solar radiation. The physics don't match observation. It's like watching someone sweat profusely in freezer. Solar radiation pressure is not subtle. When photons from Sun hit dust particles, they transfer momentum. Tiny push, but relentless. Over time, overcomes weak gravity of comet and drives dust particles away from Sun. Every comet ever photographed shows this. Tail always points away from Sun, always. Except 3, Atlas shows scattered light, extending twice as far towards Sun as away from it. Hubble image is unambiguous. Enhancement of data makes it even clearer. More stuff sunward than anti-sunward. Avi Loeb and Eric Quito publish models suggesting this could happen if object sheds large ice fragments from Sun-facing side. Those fragments survive longer because they're bigger, creating extended snow line in solar direction. Physics works on paper. Ice fragments of specific sizes ejected at specific velocities under specific conditions of solar heating. But those conditions incredibly narrow. Need preferential ejection from dayside. Need fragments large enough to resist radiation pressure but small enough to scatter visible light efficiently. Need evaporation rate just right so fragments survive long enough to create observed distribution. It's possible. Barely. Same way it's possible to flip coin 50 times and get heads every time. Laws of physics don't forbid it. But probability makes you wonder if coin is weighted. And this is pattern. Every anomaly has natural explanation that works if you're willing to accept 3. Atlas is uniquely configured in ways no other comet has ever been. Mass can be explained if uncommonly dense. Trajectory can be explained if statistical fluke happened. Chemistry can be explained if exotic process is occurring. Polarization can be explained if dust grain distribution unlike anything cataloged. Each explanation plausible in isolation, but they're not in isolation, they stack. 7 anomalies, each requiring own special pleading, all occurring in same object. At what point does simplest explanation stop being natural and start being designed? October 1st, 2025, 12:01 a.m., United States federal government officially shut down. Within hours, 15,000 NASA employees received furlough notices, sent home, labs went quiet, offices closed, ongoing research ground to halt. For most of agency, work stopped entirely. But not for everyone. Small fraction, just over 3,000 people, classified as essential. Required to keep working. They won't receive paychecks during shutdown. They'll log hours and hope for back pay when government reopens. But they have to show up because work they do literally keeps spacecraft alive. Mission control operations for International Space Station continued uninterrupted. Ground controllers still monitor life support systems, prepare and validate commands, respond to emergencies. About 1,000 commands per day flow from Earth to ISS. If those controllers were furloughed, astronauts' lives would be at risk. So they work unpaid while Congress argues over budgets. Other major exception to shutdown, Artemis program. NASA's effort to return humans to Moon. Acting administrator made agency's priorities crystal clear in social media posts before shutdown. China is not going to Moon with good intentions. Implication obvious. Beating China to lunar surface considered national security imperative. Important enough to exempt thousands of workers from furlough. This includes employees working on Artemis 2, crewed test flight around Moon scheduled for February 2026. And Artemis 3, actual moon landing mission planned for mid-2027. Also includes contractors at SpaceX and Blue Origin developing lunar landers. Contractors told to keep working through shutdown. Logging time without immediate payment, because Artemis cannot be allowed to slip further behind schedule. But here's what shutdown doesn't tell you. Crisis at NASA began long before October 1st. Earlier in 2025, Office of Management and Budget and Acting Administrator issued directives to slash workforce by more than 4,000 employees. From end of September through January 9th, 2026, thousands of longtime NASA employees leaving through deferred resignation offers. Over 20% of workforce gone, and it's not just numbers. These resignations included top-tier talent, engineers who worked on Artemis systems, scientists managing planetary missions, experts in power systems, propulsion, life support. One NASA employee at Johnson Space Center, speaking anonymously, said agency lost at least one foremost expert in power systems. Critical loss for developing nuclear reactor needed to generate power on Moon. Exodus driven by budget uncertainty and political pressure. President's proposed budget for fiscal 2026 requests lowest NASA funding since 1961, adjusted for inflation. Year Alan Shepard became first American in space. Budget proposal includes devastating 47% cut to science programs. If enacted, would cancel 41 missions, including spacecraft already launched and making discoveries. Think about that. Not missions still being planned. Missions already flying, telescopes already observing distant galaxies, probes already exploring other planets, satellites already monitoring Earth's climate. Proposal would literally turn off spacecraft journeying through solar system for decades, wasting billions of taxpayer dollars, erasing knowledge that can never be recovered. List of threatened missions reads like greatest hits of space exploration. Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, flagship observatory designed to discover hundreds of thousands of exoplanets and survey over billion galaxies. Canceled despite being nearly complete. OSIRIS-APEX, currently on way to study asteroid Apophis during close Earth flyby in 2029, shut down mid-flight. Mars sample return mission. Despite already having samples sitting on Mars waiting to come home, abandoned, potentially allowing China to beat America returning Martian material to Earth. Even missions already proven their worth aren't safe. Chandra X-ray Observatory, observing high-energy universe since 1999, making discoveries reshaping astrophysics, on chopping block, Hubble Space Telescope, perhaps most famous scientific instrument ever built, could see mission support reduced or eliminated. Proposed cuts don't just affect space exploration. Earth science missions monitoring climate change, tracking deforestation, measuring sea level rise, providing data essential for weather forecasting and disaster response. Also targeted, planetary defense programs designed to find and track asteroids that could threaten Earth. Reduced funding, ironic given recent surprise flyby of asteroid 2025 TF. Whistleblowers within NASA spoke out, noted imposing budget that hasn't been approved by Congress is illegal, defies constitutional principles. NASA's legal office should know better, one said. They should know what this administration doing is breaking NASA procedures, regulations, not following will of Congress. But violations continue, often hidden from public view. And while NASA crumbles, while workforce hemorrhages expertise, while missions get canceled, 3I Atlas made its closest approach to Mars, and we got fuzzy dot. Let's lay out timeline. July 1st, 2025, 3I Atlas discovered. July through September, scientists detect multiple anomalies, unusual trajectory, impossible chemistry, thermal contradictions, WOW signal alignment. September, Avi Loeb begins publishing calculations showing statistical improbabilities. October 1st, government shutdown, 15,000 NASA employees furloughed. October 3rd, 3I Atlas makes closest approach to Mars, 7 spacecraft watching. Best observation opportunity ever for interstellar visitor. October 3rd, same day, amateur astronomer captures image showing angular structures. October 4th, anonymous 4chan post claims insider ESA knowledge. Details chemical and thermal impossibilities. October 4th, Perseverance captures streak image that calculations suggest is 50,000 kilometers long. October 5th, social media posts about 3I Atlas begin disappearing. Algorithmic suppression ramps up. October 7th, 8th, ESA releases fuzzy images. Public backlash immediate. October 7th onward, NASA, China, UAE remain completely silent. No images released. October 8th onward, Representative Luna contacts Loeb for analysis. Sitting congressperson seeking external expert opinion on Mars photograph. October 29th, 30th. 3I Atlas reaches perihelion, behind Sun. Hidden from all Earth-based observation. Early November. Object emerges. Trajectory analysis will reveal if course changed. February 2026. ESA's JUICE spacecraft data from November observations becomes available. Every step of this timeline raises questions. Why did government shut down exact week of Mars flyby? Coincidence that NASA went dark right when we needed them most? Why are multiple space agencies, multiple sovereign nations, all silent simultaneously about most significant interstellar object in years? Why did social media suppression ramp up within 48 hours of ESA photo release? Why is sitting U.S. representative bypassing NASA to get expert analysis? Why does object reach perihelion at exact moment when it's hidden from every telescope on Earth? Any single data point you can explain. Government shutdowns happen, bureaucracies move slowly, social media algorithms change. Orbits are what they are. But pattern is harder to dismiss. August 2025, 2 months before Mars flyby. Before shutdown, before viral posts, Bertie Jaworski, professional remote viewer, former vice president of Farsight Institute, nearly 30 years experience, master's degree in digital forensics. Not profile of someone chasing internet fame with wild claims. Friend gave her set of coordinates, just numbers, no context, no photographs, no news articles. This is how legitimate remote viewing works. Target remains completely blind. Viewer has no idea what they're looking at until after session complete. Bertie sat down, entered protocol, began describing what she perceived. First thing she reported, movement through space. Something traveling, something old, very old. She described it as natural object. Icy, rocky, exactly what you'd expect if someone asked you to remote view comet. For a while, that's all it was. But then she noticed something unusual. There was something that wasn't completely natural, she said later in podcast. There was something strange. She kept going deeper. That's when she perceived it. Something small, about size of thumb drive, something deliberately placed inside object, not on surface, inside. Someone had bored into this rock, she reported. Bored into this icy rock deliberately and placed something encoded with all kinds of information. It's kind of like archive, message in bottle, but it's not just message, it's technology of some sort. Pause. Think about what she's describing. Not alien beings, not massive spacecraft. Thumb drive-sized piece of technology, ancient beyond measure, hidden inside comet traveling through galaxy for billions of years. She went further. This thing is so old. And even though object itself is like billions of years old, thing that was placed inside of it is also very old. Did some species there on other side of galaxy send up little robot to bore into it and stick their little message and technology knowing this thing was going to keep traveling? Question sounds like science fiction until you remember we've done exactly this. Voyager probes carry golden records. Time capsules designed to survive billions of years in hope someone someday might find them. Idea of using natural objects as vessels for messages is not alien to us. We just haven't thought about it in reverse. Friend who gave Bertie coordinates waited until after session to reveal what she'd been viewing. 3I Atlas, interstellar object that would not make headlines until weeks later. She'd been viewing something most of the world didn't yet know existed, but Birdie wasn't finished. She did 2 more sessions, going deeper, trying to understand what she was perceiving. In those follow-up sessions, she discovered something that changed the entire picture. It's also broadcasting. These messages come out in pulses. Broadcasting, present tense, not was broadcasting billions of years ago, is broadcasting now. When podcast host mentioned Avi Loeb published calculations showing 3I Atlas arrived from same region of sky as WOW signal from 1977, Birdie didn't hesitate. That's super interesting. It's very possible that that is the WOW signal. Multiple other remote viewing groups, working independently, no contact with each other, targeted 3I Atlas in following months. Specifics varied, but certain themes appeared again and again. Technology, deliberate placement, broadcasting, non-human intelligence. One group reported perceiving humanoid forms associated with object. Another described what they called graffiti, signatures. Someone had signed it. Several viewers reported sensation of object being masked, deliberately avoiding detection, as if it didn't want to be fully seen. One detailed report mentioned special access, extraction points, timeline. Not vague mystical impressions. Specific technical details sounding more like intelligence briefing than psychic session. Does any of this prove 3I Atlas is sending signals? Of course not. Remote viewing, even at most rigorous, remains in realm of anomalous cognition, not hard science. These are subjective impressions filtered through human consciousness, but they're remarkably consistent across multiple independent viewers, and they align in eerie ways with physical anomalies telescopes were detecting. If there actually was thumb drive-sized device inside ancient comet, deliberately placed billions of years ago, what would we expect to see? We'd expect it to look like comet from distance, ice, dust, outgassing, all normal signatures. But up close, we might notice things that don't quite fit. Unusual chemistry, unexpected materials, behaviors seeming designed rather than random. We'd expect it to be massive, far more massive than visible size suggests, because there'd be something dense at core, something that doesn't sublimate away, and we'd expect it to be transmitting. Not loudly, not obviously, but if you knew where to look, if you had right instruments pointed in right direction at right time, you might detect something. Pulse, pattern, signal that shouldn't be there. Birdie Jaworski perceived all of this in August, before most scientific data was published, before anomalies became undeniable, before NASA went silent. She described message and bottle traveling through galaxy. And now, as 3I Atlas hides behind sun, as official channels refuse to release images from Mars flyby, as amateur astronomers report cylindrical shapes and scientists detect impossible chemistry, that bottle is getting closer to perihelion, point of maximum heat, maximum stress, point where, as Avi put it, confessions are elicited. If there's thumb drive-sized piece of technology buried in heart of this comet, October 29th is when it will either reveal itself or remain hidden forever. In fact, that NASA sent 15,000 employees home right before we could get our best look raises question remote viewers have been asking since August. What did they see that were not being shown? Early December 2025. 3I Atlas will emerge from behind sun like swimmer surfacing after long dive. Astronomers will find it in constellation Virgo, low on eastern horizon in pre-dawn hours, magnitude 12 or 13. Too faint for amateur telescopes, but well within reach of professional observatories. And everyone will be watching the numbers. Orbital mechanics is one of most precise sciences we have. Newton's laws, refined by Einstein's relativity, allow us to predict where object will be years in advance. Down to kilometer, we can account for gravitational perturbations from planets, radiation pressure from sunlight, even subtle push of outgassing as comets shed material. When 3I Atlas reappears, its position will tell story. If it's exactly where pure gravitational calculations say it should be, give or take expected deviation from outgassing, then we can reasonably conclude nothing unusual happened behind Sun. It passed perihelion, survived heat, continued on predetermined path into outer solar system, and eventually back to interstellar space. But if position is off, if trajectory shows changes that cannot be explained by known forces, then every paper written about this object will need addendum. Every assumption will crack open. Because objects don't just change course on their own, something has to push them. Vera-Rubin Observatory will play a crucial role in what happens next. This telescope, recently operational, represents revolution in how we survey sky. Previous asteroid surveys found around 20,000 new objects per year. Rubin found 2,114 asteroids in its first 10 hours. 10 hours, 2,000 asteroids. When Rubin turns attention to searching for interstellar objects, trickle becomes flood. Scientists estimate we could be detecting dozens of interstellar visitors per year instead of one every few years. And each one will be studied with lessons learned from 3I Atlas fresh in our minds. We'll know what to look for: chemical signatures, polarization characteristics, trajectory alignments. If 3I Atlas is truly anomalous, we'll have other objects to compare it against. If it's first of new category, Rubin will find its siblings. But December isn't just about orbital mechanics and future surveys, it's about questions building since July. What did Mars orbiters actually see? By December, government shutdown will be long over. NASA back at full staff. High-resolution images from the October 3rd will have been processed, analyzed, either filed away or prepared for publication. Those images, taken when 3I Atlas was just 29 million kilometers from camera, could resolve features on nucleus if coma wasn't too dense. 5-kilometer-wide object at that distance should show structure, not fine detail, but gross morphology. Is it round, elongated, irregular? Are there variations in brightness suggesting different materials on surface? Does it look like other comet nuclei we've photographed, or is it something else? The fact that these images haven't been released raises questions that won't disappear just because calendar turns to December. Scientific data usually published as quickly as possible. Competition to be first with new findings is fierce. Multiple space agencies observe 3I Atlas at Mars. None released detailed imagery. Either images confirm it's just unusual comet, or absence of images becomes its own answer. Radio astronomers will also be watching. If 3I Atlas was source of WOW signal in 1977, and if it's still capable of transmitting, December provides another opportunity. Multiple radio telescopes have been quietly monitoring region where objects should be, not with fanfare of SETI's usual campaigns, but with steady, patient observation. Any signal, any pulse, any pattern in radio frequencies correlating with object's position would be revolutionary. Hydrogen line at 1420 megahertz. That's frequency to watch. That's where WOW signal appeared. If 3I Atlas has something to say, that's where it will say it. December 19th marks moment of closest approach to Earth, 1.8 astronomical units, roughly 270 million kilometers. Not close by any measure that matters for safety, but close enough that parallax becomes significant. Parallax is apparent shift in object's position when viewed from different locations. As Earth orbits Sun, our viewing angle on 3I Atlas changes slightly. By measuring shift with extreme precision, we can triangulate objects' exact distance and velocity. Any deviation from expected values becomes immediately obvious. Observatories across globe will coordinate observations, northern and southern hemispheres, different longitudes providing round-the-clock coverage. Amateur astronomers will contribute data alongside professionals. One of most thoroughly documented observations of any solar system object in history, and somewhere in all that data we'll find either confirmation or contradiction. Confirmation this is, despite everything, natural object from interstellar space exhibiting rare but explainable characteristics. Ambassador from another planetary system. Strange because it formed under different conditions than our solar system's comets, but ultimately following same physics, or contradiction. Something in trajectory, chemistry, behavior that cannot be reconciled with natural origins. Data point that breaks model, evidence forcing us to consider what we've been avoiding considering. By late December, 3I Atlas will be fading again as it recedes from Sun, moving into constellation Leo, heading back out toward orbit of Jupiter, which it will pass in March 2026. After that, outer solar system, Helios Heath, interstellar space. One way or another, December will give us answers, not all answers, but enough to know whether we're watching greatest comet show of our generation, or greatest upheaval in human understanding since we realized Earth was not center of universe. Telescopes are ready, equations prepared, world watching. Now we wait for 3I Atlas to emerge from behind Sun and show us what it really is. Let's play this out. Suppose 3I Atlas really is interstellar probe. Suppose it's been broadcasting signals. Wow signal was its way of announcing arrival. What happens next? First, confirmation. If December observations show trajectory changes or radio emissions, scientific community will mobilize. Papers published, data shared, telescopes around world focus on this object. Confirmation process will take time. Months probably. Science doesn't move fast. Every claim challenged. Every alternative explanation explored. But if evidence holds up, if multiple independent teams reach same conclusion, then at some point consensus will shift. We are not alone. We have been visited. Implications are staggering. Not just scientifically, philosophically, religiously, politically, every human culture would have to grapple with knowledge someone else is out there. That we're not unique. That intelligence has arisen elsewhere and reached level where interstellar travel is possible. Financial markets might crash, as Avi Loeb suggested, not because of immediate danger, because of uncertainty. How do you value assets in a world where everything you thought you knew just changed? Governments would have to respond. United Nations has protocols for contact scenarios, but they've never been tested in reality. Religious institutions would need to reconcile teachings with existence of non-human intelligence. Some faiths would adapt easily, others would face theological crises. Then there's question of intent. Why send probe? What is it here to do? If purely observational, gathering data about our solar system and planet, that's relatively benign. We do same thing with our probes. But if it's doing something else, if it's meant to interact or intervene, that raises questions we're not prepared to answer. Remote viewers who described extraction points and special access were touching on this. What if it's not just watching? What if it's supposed to collect something? Sounds paranoid, probably is paranoid. But when dealing with technology from unknown source with unknown capabilities and unknown intent, paranoia isn't entirely unreasonable. Another question, why now? If probes have been passing through solar system for millennia, why is this one exhibiting behaviors we can detect? Why is it broadcasting if that's what it's doing? One possibility, it was always doing this. We only just developed technology to notice. Before radio telescopes, before space missions, before sophisticated spectroscopy, we couldn't have detected these anomalies. Another possibility, it activated recently because it detected something. Maybe Earth's radio emissions, maybe our spacecraft, maybe simple fact we're now looking and it knows we're watching. If it adjusts behavior based on observation, that implies level of autonomy and intelligence we're not prepared to deal with. Now suppose opposite. December arrives. 3I Atlas exactly where it should be. No trajectory changes, no radio signals. All anomalies turn out to have boring natural explanations. That would be disappointing to some, vindicating to others. But it wouldn't be end of story, because even if 3I Atlas is just comet, questions it raised are still valid. Why is its chemistry so unusual? Legitimate scientific puzzle worth solving. How common are interstellar objects? Vera Rubin Observatory will answer that in coming years. Should we be prepared for possibility of artificial objects entering solar system? Yes, even if this one isn't, someday there might be one that is. Speculation around 3I Atlas has been intense, some irresponsible. Wild claims with no evidence, panic for clicks. But some has been thoughtful, people asking reasonable questions about object that doesn't fit expectations. That's how science progresses. Notice something weird, ask why, look for answers. Sometimes answers are mundane, sometimes revolutionary. Either way, you learn something. We began with NASA going silent. 15,000 employees sent home same day interstellar object past Mars. We looked at fuzzy photographs that raised more questions than they answered. At amateur astronomers capturing structures professional agencies wouldn't show us. We examined anonymous leak claiming insider knowledge of impossible chemistry, thermal contradictions, trajectory precision suggesting design rather than chance. We traced connections to 48-year-old radio signal from same region of sky, calculated power requirements for transmission across 600 astronomical units. We stacked anomalies, nickel without iron, tail pointing wrong direction, orbital inclination less than 5 degrees. 7 statistical improbabilities occurring in same object. We watched social media suppress discussion, fact-checkers label speculation, platforms' algorithm suppression ramp up exactly when public interest peaked. We noted government shutdown timing, multiple space agencies going silent simultaneously, sitting congressperson bypassing NASA for external analysis. We listened to remote viewers describing technology inside ancient comet, broadcasting impulses, message in bottles sent billions of years ago. And we realized 3I Atlas will reach perihelion behind Sun, hidden from every telescope on Earth during moment that should reveal its true nature. Each piece of this puzzle carries uncertainty. Could be explained away individually, coincidence, measurement error, bureaucratic dysfunction, but pattern, accumulation, compound improbability, that's harder to dismiss. In less than 72 hours, 3I Atlas reaches perihelion. We won't see what happens. We'll wait for November, for December, for object to emerge and trajectory to be measured, for radio telescopes to finally point and listen, for NASA images to eventually surface, or not. For answers that may confirm our comfortable assumptions about universe, or shatter them completely. A.V. Loeb won't rank this object lower than 2 on his scale. Even best case scenario, anomalies too persistent, too numerous, too correlated to dismiss as natural with complete confidence. We can't definitively rule out artificial origin without more data. That's where we are, suspended between probable and possible, between natural visitor and technological artifact. Questions we're asking now are among most profound ever posed. What is universe made of? How did life begin? Are we alone? And if we're not alone, if visitors do come, will we recognize them? Will we be ready? October 2025 might be moment we learn answer, or might be another chapter in long human story of looking up and wondering. Either way, we'll know more in December than we know now. Telescopes watching, equations prepared, world waiting for 3I Atlas to emerge from behind Sun and show us finally what it really is.